Welcome to Get Tied On, this week's edition. I'm Tom Amello. He's Michael Kipnis. Michael, we've got the festival in the books. And like Belmont Week, the 4th of July festival will be no longer, as Naira promises. Next year, we'll be back to a 40-day meet. They had 14K on opening day, 17K Saturday, 13K on Sunday. That's 44,000 paid attendance. Handle was reasonable. I think the first question I have for you is, they're going to get 44K at Belmont Park for 4th of July next year?
I would take the under and make a big bet on that.
Yeah, I only asked that for this reason. You know, they're going out of their way to say this is the end of life in Saratoga before the regular 40-day meet. But that's a chunk of attendance and certainly a chunk of handle that, in my opinion, the New York Racing Association will look at, study, and talk to the Gaming Commission someday and saying, you know where we can get more revenue.
Yeah, it was amazing they did that many people, because, I was at the track all 3 days, and boy, was it hot, especially Friday. I didn't even think they would get in all the races prior to the card starting, but they did. It was hot, and it was pretty hot on Saturday, not quite as hot. And Sunday was okay, but they did a good crowd considering.
Yeah, and you got to remember, the new stat of this era is paid attendance, not physical walking through the door attendance. But handle is so good when the moniker says Saratoga, and that'll never change.
Yeah, it was so nice just to be back at Saratoga. And I said to several people that I ran into that a bad day at Saratoga is a good day anywhere else. So,
well, the fact that there are no memorabilia shirts behind your head proves that you're not home in Connecticut. You're here in Saratoga.
And only a 10-minute walk and a 2-minute drive from the track. So it's nice to be this close.
Let's kind of recap the racing and the races in terms of on the surfaces for the 3 days. And then we'll talk about some of the highlight performances and some of the low light performances, if you will. I don't think anybody would deny that the Friday card was speed, and inside position on both courses.
I agree. I mean, it for that one day, it was like when Belmont Stakes week. It was similar to that, except the bias prevailed for a few days there. That during that time, the opening day was certainly a bias. Like you said, favoring speed, both on the turf courses, especially on the inner turf and on the main track.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of evening out the main track as the weekend proceeded. The turf courses rock hard. I live here in Saratoga, and they were certainly watering the track, but it was rock hard. The turf courses were
no doubt. And and some of the times would point that out.
And watching races on days like that, reviewing the replays, will really point out horses who took money, who were significantly disadvantaged once the gates opened and they ran over the surfaces they ran over.
Yeah, there were several races, a couple come to mind, where the way you plotted out the pace of the race or how it would set up didn't happen, and it changed. One that comes to mind was yesterday, Bago.
Right.
I thought Bago would be contested more on the lead, and that the pace was going to be quicker than it actually was. And that when Bago got out to a clear lead, and the jock was able to back down the pace. That played right into his hands and against everybody else.
You could say the same for the Suburban with Phileas Fogg, really wonderfully ridden by Kendrick Carmouche. But I thought there was going to be at least some early pressure on him. Forget the fact that Antiquarian lost his race at the gate. But I thought Phileas Fogg, regardless of the fact that he loves the track and has proven at the distance and won this race before, I thought that he would face at least some pressure for some portion of the race, and that would soften him up.
Well, I agree. And, I love Flavien Prat as a rider, but one thing he is not good at is being aggressive out of the gate and taking advantage of the speed that a horse has. And a case in point is Forged Steel, who he was on for Safi Joseph. Forged Steel was fast early in a lot of his races. He's breaking several slots inside of Phileas Fogg. And I thought that if I was the owner or the trainer, I would have said to Pratt, you just break sharp and go with it. What happened? Go on early. And what he did was he did break him well, but Kendrick Carmouche on Fogg did a great job intimidating him. If you look at the run into the passing the stands and into the first turn, he inched his way close. He didn't put him in tight, but he put him on the defensive. And Pratt took back instead of just going on and forcing Phileas Fogg to maybe have to sit off of him. Once that Phileas Fogg got the lead and set the pace that he did, I mean, it was 24-3, 112 and 3. Those are very comfortable fractions for a quality horse like that. That race was over on the backstretch.
Let's talk about another race, and we'll talk about two things here. First of all, Charlie Appleby, and then Donica O'Brien. And I'm going to confess that I handicapped this race at the Hall of Fame, and in handicapping the race, I totally missed that Kensington Lane was coming out of the same race as the favorite. Now, we both know how good the O'Brien clan is, and this horse Kensington Lane had not really performed, other than the fact that he showed speed in every race, speed in every one of his race, which is not how you win in Europe. And I even had the conversation during the seminar about the fact that the most likely Euro winner coming to America is one who they've decided has the wrong running style for the major races that they run in Ireland and England. They're on the front end and they get eaten up late. Well, when they come to America, they kind of are racing forward, not necessarily on the lead, but they can finish. And, I totally missed this one. And what does Kensington Lane get to do? He gets to fall on the lead and put the field to sleep at a big number, which really a number he shouldn't have been. I missed that entirely.
Well, you and most people, and I think the reason we did is because, Abashiri, the Appleby horse, Abashiri had showed good speed as well in Europe. Okay, and I thought Abashiri was actually the faster horse early on. Now, what happened was, out of the gate, Abashiri basically lost all chance because it forced the hand of William Buick, who is an elite rider, in the top echelon in the whole world of riders, to make this premature move and go wide and pick up the chase. And he was done at the quarter pole. But I have to say that the hard thing to determine beforehand with these Euros is they don't get the opportunity, hardly ever, to run on rock hard, firm turf.
Correct.
So when they actually, a horse like Kensington Lane gets the lead without pressure and takes to the firm turf course. And my mistake was the family of that horse loved firm turf. I didn't know that until I heard it and read the quotes from the trainer referring to that. Right. So they knew something that I didn't know, and I wasn't smart enough to figure it out beforehand. So he loved the lead and loved the tighter turns and the firmer grass.
Charlie Appleby was 12-0-1-2 for the 7 days at Royal Ascot. And I was concerned as to how that cold yard would perform with his two starters this weekend, Abashiri and Pacific Avenue. I thought, as you did, Abashiri looked better, the more fit horse. And I gave Abashiri a bigger chance and was standing against Pacific Avenue. But, Appleby usually comes here with a couple of horses and an empty plane and goes home with the horses and a plane full of money. He hadn't done that of late.
We just have it in our heads when guys like that who've been successful for so many times, for so many years, we just, put extra emphasis on it. And we don't, I certainly didn't think about his Ascot Schneid or, his recent, I think of Charlie Appleby like I do Aiden O'Brien. I mean, when they come over, they usually do have the goods.
Let's talk briefly. Let's talk briefly about the spill that fortunately looked worse than the outcome, if you will, and the fact that Paco Lopez went down in one race and gets up to ride a winner in the next race.
That was the scariest spill as you'll ever see, and it's miraculous. And that's an understatement, that all four horses cantered off the track with just maybe a few minor bruises. And the jockeys, for the most part, perfect. I mean, I think Castellano was sent to the grandstand first aid section for checkup, then went to Saratoga Hospital for x-rays, which I think were clean. It's amazing. I mean, it was the racing gods were on the sides of both the horses and the riders in that spell.
Yeah, Maggie spoke with Paco as he was walking off the course and reported on her conversation with him, and then he comes back in the next race, the juvenile stake race on Harper's Ferry, and ran him into the ground. Laurel horse.
Despite not changing leads, I think both those juvenile races, what was behind those horses, the winner, are not much. I think you're going to, as the year goes on, you're going to see those horses, especially if the winner's trying to stretch out. I think they're going to be up against it. They were the right place at the right time on the right track.
Mm-hmm. There was a pace meltdown in the Saranac. Here's Johnny was in Wilton when the field was turning, rounding the far turn into the top of the stretch, and he managed to mow him down. And horse Glavin had a tough trip.
Yeah, that's the second tough trip in a row that Glavin has had for trainer Tom Morley. Glavin stutter stepped out of the gate. He's not a horse that wants to close like that from behind. But despite that, he ran really well. He altered course inside late, and he wasn't beaten that much. But he's developing some gait issues, and he's going to have to need a cleaner start and be more forwardly placed, like he did when he broke his maiden, which was very impressive. Here's Johnny had been nibbling at some, top slots and stakes races, but was still a maiden in this race, going into this race. But he got it, even though he was far back, he got a pace set up, and he was wide without any obstruction, and he rolled down the stretch with the clun, and he got set up really well, and good for Ray Handel, to win a stake race of this magnitude. He showed up, he ran a race, he came from behind and got the job done.
The fact that the spill was not as horrible as it could be was a highlight, really. And as horrible as it was, the fact that everybody came out relatively okay with. But the lowlight of the week is the DQ in the final race on Saturday. Talk about that.
There's two ways to look at it. If you go by the rules, and there's a couple stipulations in the rule book, you certainly, if you follow the rule to the T, you could make the case that they took down the horse properly, by the rules, okay? Because the winner, who was much the best, split horses, came out, lightly brushed the horse in the middle, who got in tight with the horse to the outside, with the rider of the horse in the middle striking the head or the tip or the nose or whatever with his whip. Yeah. Now, we've seen a lot worse and no takedowns many times. Okay. I'm a big believer. Look, you have to have rules, but you have to follow the rules and be consistent. And that's all we're all looking for, is consistency. You can't take a horse down like we saw in the last race and not take down others. There was one recently. I mean, there's many that they left up. Public perception was not good, okay? Because common sense, right? Common sense says you leave the horse up. You don't make the change, okay? So, in my opinion, personally, I think that they should have left the horse up and there should not have been a disqualification. But the rules are the rules, and I just hope for the future of racing in New York or anywhere, but especially a high-profile track like New York and Saratoga, that if this ever comes down to something similar, and you'll always see it in turf races, mostly this kind of thing in turf races, and maybe the rules have to be altered. They have to, sit down and adjust these rules, because my God, I walk the stands. I talk to people. I don't think that there was one person I spoke to that felt that the disqualification was justified. And I'm talking about, some of them were knowledgeable people that I asked that are real race watchers.
Yeah. Well, the real question in my mind, okay, what, if anything, does this bode for the rest of the meet? All right, we've got what you might call a monumental DQ from which very few people are happy, but it was rule driven, if you will. Are we going to have a consistent enforcement of the rules going forward? They're going to be, or are we just going to go back to herding as usual and and the like. I don't know what it portends for the rest of the meet.
I watch these riders every day, both the pan shot and the head on. And I'd say all of them, most of them, they're very careful when they ride. I mean, they don't want to hurt anybody. They, some are a little more aggressive than others, but they do respect everyone, who they're riding on on the track. There was nothing done by the rider of the winner in that race that was intentional at all. It actually it was such a minor brush. We see that in every race, every turf race at some point in the race, when they're riding in tight and they're riding in herds and bunches, there's brushing. It's just, that's the way it is. There wasn't like an intentional move of the reins to, he split horses. He was tons the best. I feel really bad for, and family members of mine bet the two coach of the year in honor of my son as a coach, right? So like as a betting and anyone that had it, but not only to add salt to the wound is that they were blinking the inquiry for like 15 minutes, right? And then they take the inquiry down and you think it's going to be posted official. And for like 5 seconds, that's what it is. There's nothing, the inquiry's down and the order of finish is posted. And then they make the announcement like 10 seconds later. So you think you survived. If you bet the two, you survived the objection and you're heading to the window. Rip them up. That was
how about
to the wound.
When you're talking about that, you got to go back and think about the dead heat with Me Bago and Zulu Kingdom. Yeah, when Frank Marimati says the 1-1, and then they tell him, no, it's a dead heat. He goes, well, the one didn't win. They both,
look, I could have had an appetizer, a drink in the main course for the amount of time it took to decide that dead heat, right? And zeros. I mean, we could have had a fun evening, right? And then come out and find the result. That was bad.
Right.
That was bad because I mean, you think you got the winner, they put the winner up. It was, and you knew it was a dead heat. You knew it was a heater by the amount of time like that it took to post it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you except that I had a good meal.
A couple of things to talk about. One that I think is a highlight. I was delighted to see Naira and the National Steeplechase Association name a stakes race after Leo O'Brien. And I think it was appropriate that the race was run with two horses with 20-length leads on the field and a late close by McTeague. And so, Leo O'Brien was salt of the earth, well-respected trainer, family man. His daughter is married to John Velasquez, and it was good to see that from Naira and the Steeplechase Association.
Yeah, I agree, and I also am very happy that they ran the second year for the second year in a row the Harvey Pack. I am glad that there's a race. I'm glad that there's a race in honor of Harvey Pack.
Well, I think that the entire time between races, before they call the horses to the post in the Harvey Pack, should be replays of the Paddock Club and Harvey's nightly show, and even replays of his radio spots, because I think that this is a man who, in my, as curmudgeon-y as he was a gem and a gift to the game, and really didn't get the overall recognition he should have, in my opinion, for his contribution to the game.
Well, many of us in the game hung out in Daddy's office. And if you were good to Daddy, you got a spot on the show. So I try to be good to Daddy. There was, the Groner, the Whammer, the Source, me, Andy,
Preachy,
Serling,
Preachy.
I mean, we were all part of Daddy's office, and then there was the granddaddy in Daddy's office, which was Howie Tesher. You would always see that daily double in the office, the Tesher pack double. They would be the mainstays. Daddy, you'd bring Daddy his tickets, you'd bring Daddy coffee, you would just hang out. I mean, look, Harvey Pack to me was like a stepfather, he was the stepfather for a lot of us.
Okay. All right, now we got to go to a more somber note. The racing world lost two people. We just found out about the second one, but let's pay homage to your friend and longtime trainer. I met him through you, John Parisella. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, John died in Long Island. He took a bad fall a few days ago. I mean, really bad. And that was pretty much the nail in the coffin. I mean, he was in bad shape after that, and he passed away a couple days after. Look, John, we were very dear friends. Actually, I would call, he had a nickname, Johnny Whiz. That was his nickname with me. So whenever we called him, I'd say, Johnny Whiz, how are you? Look, his main owner was Ted Sabarese, but he was a trainer for guys like Jimmy Kahn, Don Rickles, Telly Savalas. He was to horse racing like Walt Clyde Frazier was to the New York Knicks. Lavish, mink coats, really out there, a personality, wore it big on his sleeve. He trains some really good horses. I mean, Simply Majestic, Jones Time Machine, Am Capable. He a great personality. And, I even talked to people at the track the other day, a couple of people that have been around as long as I have. And one thing is, they all said the same thing. He was just a hell of a nice guy. He was just a character from Brooklyn. Later went to New York. What people don't know is that when he retired, this, because we go back and I share with you a lot of the inner stories within the story, is that when he retired, I want him to get out. I knew he missed training, but the game passed him by. And I said, let's go to Turf Paradise and claim some horses. I'll front the money. We'll claim some nickel and dime claimers. And he actually relocated to Arizona, and we did claim some horses and run some horses there. So, he just loved the game. He loved to train. He loved to get up in the morning. John is just, look, there are people that know him. I'm sure John Preachy knew him well. Steve Young, a bloodstock agent, knew him well. He was at his bedside. I saw him in Starbucks this morning. He was at his bedside when he passed away. I mean, look, it's a loss. He was just a really good friend.
Yeah, and we learned that DRF rider handicapper on the Mid-Atlantic circuit, I think. Yes, or
no,
Midwest. Mary
yeah.
Mary Rampellini passed. I didn't know her, interact with her, but I read her work and I followed her efforts on that circuit. And she, like all of them at the Daily Racing Form, they did the work, they put in the time, and they helped Daily Racing Form customers. You knew Mary, yes?
I did. I talked to her many times on the phone. I respected her work. She was a great writer. She started reading the racing form or holding the racing form at 2 years old. I mean, she worked in her father was a big time developer of yearlings on different major farms. She did every job you can imagine on the racetrack before she became a writer. She owned, I don't know if many people know this, but she owned her own paper in Texas. They relocated to Texas. I know she was a very dear friend to Steve Asmussen, but she started her own newspaper at 18 years old. And she wrote like 2 or 3 children's books that had had everything to do with horse racing. She was a lifelong, passionate race tracker, a terrific writer, a religious person, never missed church every Sunday. The salt of the earth, just such a beautiful person. I mean, it's she really is a law, especially she wrote well. She wrote with passion. She, studied the writings of Joe Hirsch. Joe Hirsch was a mentor to her. And, just I feel really there are a lot of people, especially in the racing form family. The person that hired her, Jody Suave, was a dear friend to her, hired her. It's just she was not even maybe 52, 53 years old. That's it. Um, just, I don't know. There's nothing more I can say other than that it's a sad day knowing this.
Well, we don't have racing till Thursday of next week. Um, Thursday's PPs are out. Friday's PPs are out. Saturday's
Saturday
PPs
too.
are out. Saturday too. So, folks, we can get a good head start. I mean, you can just casually look, you can persistently look, and be prepared.
Yeah, and Tom, one thing I want to tell you is that this is the week that I may be unleashing my new Wizards betting window. Uh,
Okay,
you
let's
know,
talk about that.
it yeah, so this product I've been working on in my head and actually on paper for many years is going to be available at the Daily Racing Form, drf.com. Probably not this week, but next week. But this week I may unveil it on my website at wizardracingsports.com just to get out any kinks. I think we have it all done and set up. It's one product. You don't need a program. You don't even need a racing form if you're a beginner or novice, and you just want to go to the track with a simple. You can get the sheet on your iPad, your smartphone, your laptop. Easy to read, tells you everything you need to know. I lay out the wagers, give you the selections, write some analysis. Post times, track diagrams, everything is there. It's, to me, it's a very fun product. I have a new bet too that I created called the Place Parlay Play of the Day. We attempted it on Saturday. I think it was a 4-leg parlay. I think we got knocked out when Applebee's horse knocked us right out of the box, but
Right.
it's a risk reward. It's a low risk, high reward play. You start with $10. I know I started with 200 and I was betting 500-600 into that Applebee horse. So I crapped out, but I just lost my initial investment. If you play $10 and that was your starting play, that's all you lost with the opportunity to make over $100 if you hit. So it'll be either a 3-horse parlay or a 4-horse parlay. depending on how I feel about the race sequences.
And you should mention that you've created or you've adopted a system for expressing the strength of your opinion.
Yeah, I have a diamond system, the diamonds, right? So I have 5 levels. A 0 diamond is no play. That's probably a race filled with first-time starters or a play where there's a very short price favorite. And you know, from my betting, I don't have too many 0-star no plays, but I will have some in the sheet. There's 1 diamond, which is your average, which is like an action play. You want to get involved, but you don't want to bet much money. The 2 diamond play is an average opinion. You have an opinion. You want to put more money into the pool than is 1 diamond. The 3 diamond plays are always the crystal ball best bets. Those are solid plays. There's they could be from 2 to 4 crystal ball bet plays on a card. And the ultimate play, I name it the Diamond Scepter. And I don't know when that play is going to come. It may come once a week, every other. I have no idea, but it's the play that meets all my criteria. It's the play you want to step out. You want to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and go for the jugular. So it's the biggest bet you would make, on that day or that week. So you take your shot. In order to make money in anything, you got to take a shot. I'm calling it the Diamond Scepter, and I don't know when that's going to be. So you're going to have to buy the sheet every day and find out when it is, because I don't know when it's going to be, but it will be.
Well, yeah, 2 things, Michael. 1, it's a game of opinion. And you have to learn the strength of your opinion and areas of weakness. And I think the betting window is as good an educational tool about that, on understanding that and learning how to do that. So I would suggest folks give it a look.
And you know what's more important than anything is that I update it after late scratches.
Right. Okay.
So I will update it when, the wagers and even maybe the selections, depending on who defects from the race.
Okay. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this week's show. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with Get Tied On. Hope you join us. Be well.
Take care.